Friends, thank you for being here today. What if I told you that while the world panics about supply chain disruptions and shipping delays, they're completely missing the country that has quietly become the invisible backbone of global logistics? And what happens when everyone realizes that getting your Amazon package, filling up your gas tank, and stocking grocery shelves does not depend on massive ports in China or shipping giants in Europe, but on the transportation networks controlled by one nation that most people think just moves hockey pucks around? Most people don't know that Canada has become the silent logistics empire of the modern world. We control the fastest transcontinental railway routes that move goods between Asia and Europe faster than ocean shipping. Our ports serve as strategic gateways that handle cargo flows worth trillions of dollars annually. We're developing the Arctic shipping routes that will revolutionize global trade patterns as climate change opens new transportation corridors. But here's what should reshape how we think about economic power. We don't just move our own goods. We control the transportation bottlenecks that determine how efficiently the global economy functions. This isn't just about having good roads or efficient shipping companies. We're talking about controlling the critical infrastructure choke points that determine whether global supply chains function smoothly or collapse into chaos. The railways that carry goods from Pacific ports to Atlantic markets, the pipelines that transport energy across continents, and the emerging shipping routes that will reshape international trade for decades to come. But here's the question that will define logistics geopolitics. What happens when global commerce depends on Canadian transportation networks and we control the switches? This is the story of how geography, infrastructure investment, and strategic positioning are making Canada the undisputed master of continental logistics, and why the next economic disruption might be prevented not by building more factories, but by controlling the networks that connect them to global markets. Before we examine Canada's logistics dominance, we need to understand how dramatically global supply chains have become vulnerable to transportation disruptions, and why controlling logistics infrastructure has become one of the most powerful forms of economic leverage available to modern nations. The numbers reveal the staggering importance of logistics to the global economy and how transportation disruptions can cascade into international crises. Global logistics and transportation represent a $4.6 trillion industry annually, accounting for approximately 12% of global GDP and affecting virtually every aspect of international commerce. Supply chain disruptions cost the global economy over $184 billion annually in normal years, but extraordinary events can multiply these costs dramatically. The 2021 Ever Given container ship blocking the Suez Canal for just 6 days caused global trade losses exceeding $54 billion and demonstrated how single transportation choke points can disrupt worldwide commerce. Just-in-time manufacturing has made supply chains more efficient, but also more fragile. Modern factories maintain minimal inventory, depending on reliable transportation to deliver components exactly when needed. Transportation delays of even a few days can shut down manufacturing operations worth billions of dollars. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed the extent of global supply chain vulnerabilities. Port congestion, trucking shortages, and transportation disruptions caused shipping delays and price increases that persisted for over 2 years and contributed to global inflation affecting billions of consumers. Rail transportation has emerged as increasingly critical for continental freight movement. Railways can move goods more efficiently than trucking over long distances while producing lower emissions per ton of cargo. Major railways have become essential infrastructure for national economic competitiveness. Intermodal transportation systems that integrate railways, ports, and trucking networks are becoming the backbone of efficient supply chains. Countries with well-integrated intermodal systems can move goods more efficiently and cost-effectively than countries with fragmented transportation networks. Arctic shipping routes are becoming increasingly viable as climate change reduces sea ice coverage. These routes could reduce shipping distances between Asia and Europe by up to 40%, while bypassing traditional choke points like the Suez Canal and Strait of Malacca that are vulnerable to disruption. The most significant development is how transportation infrastructure has become a tool of geopolitical competition. China's Belt and Road Initiative represents a massive attempt to control global logistics networks through infrastructure investment. Countries that control critical transportation routes gain enormous leverage over international trade flows. This logistics competition revolution is creating opportunities for countries with strategic geographic positioning and integrated transportation networks to capture disproportionate value from global trade flows. Now let's examine what Canada actually controls in terms of logistics infrastructure and transportation networks. Our advantages go far beyond just having good transportation systems. We possess integrated logistics capabilities that connect global markets more efficiently than alternative routes. Let's start with our transcontinental railway system, which represents one of the most strategically important transportation networks in the world. The Canadian National Railway and Canadian Pacific Railway operate integrated coast-to-coast networks that provide the fastest land routes between Asian and European markets. Container ships arriving at Vancouver ports can have their cargo loaded onto trains that reach Montreal and Halifax in 4 to 5 days, providing faster transit times than ships traveling through the Panama Canal. This rail bridge connects Asian manufacturing centers with European and Atlantic markets more efficiently than alternative shipping routes. Our railway networks handle over 300 million tons of freight annually, including grain exports, manufactured goods, resources, and consumer products moving between international markets. The efficiency and reliability of Canadian rail transportation has made it essential infrastructure for North American supply chains. The integration of Canadian railways with American networks creates a continental transportation system that moves goods seamlessly across the longest undefended border in the world. This integration provides competitive advantages for manufacturers and exporters throughout North America. Rail transportation is becoming increasingly important as companies seek alternatives to trucking that provide lower costs and reduced emissions. Canadian railways are investing heavily in infrastructure improvements and technology systems that increase capacity and efficiency. Our port infrastructure represents another dimension of logistics control that affects global trade flows. The Port of Vancouver is the largest port in Canada and handles over $200 billion worth of trade annually, making it one of the most important gateways for trans-Pacific commerce. Vancouver's strategic location provides the shortest shipping routes between Asian manufacturing centers and North American markets. Container ships from China, Japan, and South Korea can reach Vancouver 2 to 3 days faster than reaching California ports, providing competitive advantages for time-sensitive cargo. The Port of Montreal serves as a crucial gateway for goods moving between North America and Europe. Its location on the St. Lawrence Seaway provides access deep into the continental interior while maintaining connections to Atlantic shipping routes. Halifax represents Canada's primary Atlantic gateway, with deepwater port facilities that can handle the largest container ships. Its location provides competitive advantages for goods moving between Europe and Eastern North America. Our port infrastructure is integrated with railway and trucking networks through intermodal facilities that allow efficient transfers between different transportation modes. This integration reduces handling costs and transit times compared to ports with less integrated transportation connections. To understand how this translates into economic leverage, we need to look at how global supply chains depend on Canadian logistics infrastructure and how this dependence creates opportunities for economic and political influence. Continental energy transportation demonstrates the clearest example of how Canadian logistics infrastructure creates international dependencies. Pipeline networks transport oil and natural gas from Canadian production areas to American and international markets, making Canadian energy infrastructure essential for North American energy security. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion and other energy infrastructure projects increase Canada's capacity to export energy to global markets while reducing dependence on American transportation networks. This infrastructure provides strategic leverage in energy trade relationships. Energy transportation infrastructure also creates dependencies for American energy markets. Refineries in the American Midwest depend on Canadian pipeline networks to receive the heavy crude oil that their facilities are designed to process. Disruptions to Canadian energy transportation could affect American energy supplies and pricing. Agricultural product transportation represents another area where Canadian logistics capabilities affect global markets. Canadian railways and ports handle grain exports that feed millions of people worldwide, making Canadian transportation infrastructure essential for global food security. The efficiency of Canadian grain transportation systems affects global grain prices and food availability. Disruptions to Canadian agricultural logistics, such as railway strikes or port closures, can cause price increases for basic foods in importing countries worldwide. Canadian logistics expertise extends beyond domestic transportation to providing services for international supply chains. Canadian logistics companies operate globally, providing warehousing, distribution, and transportation coordination services that help other countries manage their supply chain challenges. Mining and resource transportation showcases another dimension of Canadian logistics influence. Our transportation networks move iron ore, coal, potash, and other resources that are essential inputs for global manufacturing and construction industries. Canadian resource transportation infrastructure affects global commodity markets and industrial production. The efficiency and capacity of Canadian resource transportation systems influence global commodity prices and availability for manufacturing industries worldwide. I want to pause here because this raises a strategic question that I'd love to hear your thoughts on. As global supply chains become more complex and vulnerable to disruption, should Canada leverage our logistics advantages to maximize economic benefits for Canadian businesses, or should we focus on providing reliable transportation services that benefit global trade stability? This choice could define how we use our transportation infrastructure advantages and could affect everything from trade relationships to international economic cooperation. What's your perspective on leveraging our logistics control? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Beyond current logistics capabilities, Canada is positioning itself to dominate emerging transportation technologies and routes that could reshape global logistics for decades to come. Arctic shipping routes represent the most transformative opportunity for Canadian logistics leadership. As climate change reduces Arctic sea ice, the Northwest Passage through Canadian Arctic waters is becoming navigable for longer periods each year. The Northwest Passage could reduce shipping distances between Europe and Asia by up to 7,000 kilometers compared to routes through the Suez Canal or Panama Canal. For containerized freight, this distance reduction translates directly into cost savings, reduced transit times, and improved supply chain efficiency. Major shipping companies are conducting trial voyages through Arctic waters to evaluate the commercial viability of northern routes. As ice coverage continues to decline, these routes could handle significant volumes of international trade while providing Canada with strategic leverage over global shipping. The legal status of Arctic shipping routes remains contested, but Canada's sovereignty claims over Arctic waters could provide opportunities to regulate shipping traffic, collect transit fees, and enforce environmental standards for vessels using Arctic routes. Canadian ports are investing in infrastructure to support Arctic shipping, including expanded facilities in Churchill and other northern communities. These investments position Canada to capture economic benefits from increased Arctic shipping activity. Automated logistics and transportation technologies represent another frontier, where Canadian companies are developing innovative solutions. Autonomous trucking systems, automated warehousing, and AI-powered logistics optimization are becoming essential capabilities for competitive supply chain management. Canadian technology companies are developing autonomous vehicle systems specifically designed for harsh weather conditions and long-distance transportation. These systems provide advantages for logistics operations in challenging environments that many international competitors cannot match. Drone delivery systems and unmanned logistics technologies are being developed by Canadian companies for applications in remote areas and challenging conditions. This expertise translates to commercial applications in urban delivery and international logistics markets. Blockchain and digital tracking technologies are revolutionizing supply chain management by providing transparency and traceability throughout complex logistics networks. Canadian companies are developing blockchain applications for logistics that could become global standards for supply chain tracking. However, maintaining and expanding Canada's logistics leadership requires strategic investments in infrastructure, technology, and international partnerships that many Canadians don't fully appreciate. Transportation infrastructure requires massive and sustained investment to maintain competitiveness. Railways, ports, pipelines, and highway networks all need continuous upgrades and expansion to handle growing trade volumes and changing transportation technologies. The National Trade Corridors Fund represents Canadian recognition of infrastructure investment needs, but transportation infrastructure requirements often exceed government funding capacity. Public-private partnerships and international investment are increasingly important for major infrastructure projects. Skilled workforce development in logistics and transportation is critical for maintaining Canadian capabilities. Modern logistics operations require expertise in technology systems, supply chain management, and international trade that need specialized training and education. Regulatory frameworks for transportation need continued development to balance efficiency with safety, environmental protection, and international cooperation. Transportation regulations affect competitiveness while ensuring that logistics operations meet safety and environmental standards. International agreements and partnerships are essential for logistics operations that cross multiple borders and jurisdictions. Trade agreements, transportation treaties, and diplomatic relationships all affect how efficiently Canadian logistics networks can serve international markets. Technology integration across different transportation modes requires coordination and standardization that can be challenging to achieve. Intermodal logistics systems need compatible technologies and communication protocols to function efficiently. If you're finding this analysis of Canada's logistics transformation valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue producing in-depth analysis of the transportation and supply chain trends that are reshaping global commerce. The global logistics revolution represents one of the most significant but underappreciated aspects of international economic competition. Countries that achieve leadership in logistics and transportation will capture disproportionate value from global trade while gaining strategic leverage over international supply chains. Canada possesses logistics advantages that are impossible for most other countries to replicate quickly. Our geographic position provides natural corridors for transcontinental transportation. Our transportation infrastructure connects global markets more efficiently than alternative routes. But possessing these logistics advantages is not the same as leveraging them strategically. Canada needs to make conscious decisions about how to use our transportation dominance while maintaining the international cooperation and trade relationships that make global logistics systems function effectively. The next decade will be critical for establishing our role in global logistics systems. The investments in transportation infrastructure, technology development, and international partnerships we make now will determine whether Canada becomes the dominant force in global logistics or simply provides transportation services for other countries' supply chain strategies. The choices we make will affect not just our transportation sector, but our entire economy, as logistics efficiency becomes more important for international competitiveness and supply chain resilience. Friends, we are living through the transformation of logistics from a supporting service to a strategic competitive advantage. While the world's attention focuses on manufacturing capabilities and trade agreements, the real power lies in the transportation networks that connect production centers to global markets. Canada has quietly become the invisible backbone of global supply chains. Our railways carry goods faster than ocean routes. Our ports handle cargo flows worth trillions. Our pipelines transport energy that powers continental economies. Our emerging Arctic routes could revolutionize international shipping. The question isn't whether Canada can become a major power in global logistics. We already are, through our unique combination of geographic advantages, infrastructure capabilities, and strategic positioning. The question is whether we'll have the vision and commitment to leverage our logistics dominance strategically while maintaining the efficiency and reliability that make global supply chains function. The containers are moving, the pipelines are flowing, and the future of global commerce is being determined by transportation networks that most people never see but depend on completely. Canada has the infrastructure to move the world's goods, the geography to provide the most efficient routes, and the opportunity to capture value from global trade flows. What we do with this logistics opportunity will determine not just our role in global transportation, but our influence over international trade relationships and supply chain security in an increasingly connected but vulnerable global economy. The logistics revolution is here, and it runs on Canadian railways, Canadian ports, and Canadian transportation expertise. Canada can either embrace our role as the silent logistics empire or watch others control the transportation networks that determine global economic efficiency. Thank you for joining me for this exploration of Canada's logistics empire. What aspects of our transportation dominance do you think offer the most strategic potential? Should we focus on Arctic shipping routes, railway expansion, or automated logistics technologies? Share your insights below, and I'll see you in the next analysis of the forces shaping our transportation future.